While sci-fi and fantasy genres have their well-earned elite spot amongst video games, they can get repetitive and even boring. Breaking the habit is tough, but a breath of fresh air is always appreciated, and there's a game that seeks to provide that and so much more. Enter Ghost of Tsushima. Hold on to your katanas and get ready to kiai. Literally unplayable. Before we walk down the path of the samurai, or of the ghost, let me warn you about the evil spirits ahead, the spirits of the Spoiler Clan. I will be discussing the main story and some plot elements, so there will be plenty of spoilers, but if you'd like to avoid all major ones, skip to the timestamp shown on screen. You have been warned, thus my honor shall remain intact. Alright, Ikuso, spoilers incoming. Given that this is a game rooted in Japanese history, it's only fair that I present this review in the most pristine Japanese I can speak. Prepare to be wowed. Tatami, hentai, Elisabesu, Nani, Enoishita, Sanxus, Tanuki, Ronin, Ebisu, Vicious, Inari, Eren, Wasabi, Isakaya, Sasuke, Mitsubishi, Aikido, Ramen, Voltron, Ichi, Lexus, Sugoi, Aizen, Vegeta, Engetsu, Nakama, Genkai, Epson, Rasengan, Shibuya. No. Something seems off. Also, speaking such pure Japanese was draining, so I'm switching back to English. Now, let's try this again. The story focuses on the Elric brothers and their quest to defeat the evil vampire Dio, who is terrorizing Gourmet World in an attempt to reach the Stein's Gate. NANI? No, this still doesn't sound right. Aha! I got it. This time, for sure. Yokoso. Welcome to Literally History. Ghost of Tsushima is based on the real-world events that took place during the 13th century. As the Mongol Empire continued to grow, they set their sights on Japan. Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, led the two Mongol invasions of Japan, both of which started out by taking over the island of Tsushima. During the first invasion, the Mongols were met with some resistance by a small group of samurai attempting to defend their home. Unfortunately, the samurai were defeated and the Mongols took over Tsushima. During the second invasion, the Japanese were able to better defend their island and keep the Mongols at sea. Now, what's really interesting is how both of these invasions ended. While at sea, the Mongol forces were struck by strong wind, which on the second occurrence were referred to as kamikaze, or divine wind. The divine wind decimated the Mongols and saved Tsushima on two separate occasions. This concludes today's episode of Literally History. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. While the video game draws quite a bit of inspiration from and is roughly based on these historical events, the developers do take some creative liberties to make a powerful and compelling story. The game follows Jin Sakai, lord of the Sakai clan, and his fight against the invading Mongols who are trying to take over the island of Tsushima. To give a quick summary of this 3-act story, the Mongols invade the island of Tsushima and kill a lot of people. Jin goes through a whole lot of trouble, from almost dying 3 times, to rescuing Lord Shimura, his uncle and governor of Tsushima, to being betrayed by his childhood friend and leader of the Straw Hats. No, not him. To being branded a traitor, to having his trusted companion die, to having to kill his childhood friend and leader of the Straw Hats. No, not him either, though I like what you're thinking. To making sacrifices in order to become Tsushima's fighting chance. To, well, you get the idea. Jin goes through a whole lot of shit to defend his people and the land he calls home. In the end, Jin is able to save Tsushima and its remaining inhabitants, but at a heavy cost. Jin has to forfeit his ideals, his morals, and his future in order to stop the Mongols and must inevitably face the consequences of his actions. Jin must make a difficult decision that will undoubtedly affect them forever. But that's basically the story of Ghost of Tsushima. There's a whole lot more to it, so let's discuss a few interesting points that the plot makes. Early on in the story, Jin arrives at the realization that he can't defeat the Mongols by, playing nice, he realizes that his Bushido and pride will only stand in the way of effectively dealing with the enemy. In the interest of protecting his home, Jin ditches his Bushido and embraces the persona of the Ghost, a vengeful spirit sent forth to eradicate the Mongols. The plot does a great job of bringing up the moral dilemma of Jin's actions just when the player has almost forgotten about it and is just starting to get comfortable with the idea of mindlessly brutalizing the enemy in dishonorable ways. Another interesting aspect of the story is the very existence of Jin Sakai. According to history, there was no Jin Sakai, or a Sakai clan for that matter. Jin is a character purely created for the story told in this game. Furthermore, in the game, the Mongols aren't annihilated by a storm. They are utterly destroyed by the Ghost, a being they perceived as supernatural. Thus, in a sense, Jin is the representation of the divine wind in Sucker Punch's telling of these historical events. To be completely honest, the story and the plot of Ghost of Tsushima are very solid ones that are grounded in reality. There really isn't much for me to criticize here, other than some minor things. But because this is literally unplayable, you already know I am gonna complain. First off, a lot, if not all of the Mongols' problems could have been solved if they had just killed Jin and Lord Shimura when they had the chance. Both of them were captured at different points, and the leader of the Mongols, Khotun Khan, chose to not kill the two people that would eventually bring him down. Secondly, and this is more on the historical side and a bit of nitpicking, katanas were not invented until around 1337, just a few years after 1274, which is when this game takes place. It is because of the Mongol invasion that katanas were invented and tachis were replaced. Lastly, while the story and plot are very solid, they aren't anything revolutionary. The story is interesting enough to keep the player invested in it, but other than the moral dilemma of honor versus survival, there isn't anything too thought-provoking. Nonetheless, these aren't huge issues, at most minor drawbacks that keep the story and plot from being perfect. It is certainly better than having storytelling or pacing issues. Right off the bat, the game had me make a difficult decision. No, not the difficulty setting. Here at Literally Unplayable, we always go with the equivalent to hard difficulty. Easy clap. No, the challenging bit before the game even began was deciding which language to play the game in, either English or Japanese. You see, I struggled with deciding whether to play it in the developer's intended language, English, or in the language that would make the most sense, Japanese, seeing as how the game is about samurais and shit in Japan. I decided to go with Japanese, and let me tell you, not even 5 minutes into the game and I already knew I had made the right choice. Just listen to Jin speak.
俺はこの命を捨てる。船が海を覆っている。
Recognize the voice actor? To be fair, I wouldn't expect anyone who doesn't watch anime to recognize the voice. The voice actor is Nakai Kasuya. Who is that, you ask? Oh, just a voice actor for characters like Imayoshi Shoichi from Kuroko no Basket, Mugen from Samurai Champloo, Ijikata Toshiro from Gintama, or Roro Noa Tsoro from One Piece. After realizing I would be cutting down enemies while listening to Zoro, I knew I made the correct choice. Just listen to how satisfying this sounds. Oof. So badass. Something this game absolutely nails is the gameplay. Ghost of Tsushima is a third-person, open-world, action-adventure stealth game, which means that there is a big emphasis on exploration and combat. The game's world is composed of 3 major areas that provide plenty of side quests to complete, collectibles to find, NPCs to interact with, locations to visit, and small activities to do. Navigating around the open world feels like a breath of fresh air, as there is no minimap or indicators in the HUD to guide the player to desired locations. Instead, swiping up on the PS4's touchpad creates a gust of wind that points the player in the correct direction. The player may choose to focus on just the main story, but in doing so, they would miss out on valuable upgrades, new abilities, additional stat boosters, and some epic fights. And speaking of fights, let's discuss the combat aspect, because the swordplay in this game is the best I have ever seen in any video game.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
The very basics of the combat system consist of light attack, heavy attack, block, sidestep to dodge. There's no manual target lock-on mechanic, which at first I thought would be an issue, but its absence actually adds more thrill and realism to the game. Oh, and don't forget about assassinations, those are cool. As the player progresses through the game, new upgrades and abilities can be unlocked, as well as armors and charms that boost stats. All of this adds more dimensions to the combat and playstyle, whether the player is being more stealthy like the Ghost, or more upfront about combat like a Bushido upholding samurai. Now, here is where the combat really shines. Jin has 4 unique fighting stances: Stone, Water, Wind, and Moon. Each stance is designed to counter a specific enemy type and can be upgraded to chain some nasty combos and better eradicate enemies. There is also a 5th stance, the Ghost stance, which is obtained by progressing through the game. Its introduction is nothing short of majestic. You be the judge. Oof. Furthermore, there are these mythical skills that can be learned through side quests. These skills consume resolve, which acts like energy/mana and is also used for healing. Mythical skills are, well, let's just say they are absolutely OP. However, the most satisfying aspects of the combat are without a doubt the parries and the standoffs. Parrying is an essential mechanic to the game, as it will give you an edge over enemies, but the pro players know to go for that sweet perfect parry. Not just because they deal deathly damage when you counter, but because they feel so satisfying. Standoffs too feel and look amazing. There is nothing quite like being outnumbered 1 to 5 and to cut down enemy after enemy, starting off with a very flashy quick draw.
Jotaro! Dio! ほう、向かってくるのか。逃げずにこのディオに近づいてくるのか。近づかなきゃてめえをぶちのめせない。ほほう。では十分近づくがよい。
Combat never really feels boring, repetitive, or monotonous, as there's so much variability to it in how the player may approach all sorts of situations, all which makes this game's combat triple S. Ghost of Tsushima is one of the few console games that I wish were available on PC. The scenery looks breathtaking, vivid, and just downright beautiful. If only I could crank the settings up to ultra and add some ray tracing. Nonetheless, the game looks fantastic. The overworld looks detailed, well crafted, and historically accurate to feudal Japan. However, the game is not the best looking game ever. Just a few weeks before, Naughty Dog released The Last of Us Part 2, a game that is without a doubt the best looking console game thus far. The character animation and motion capture in Ghost of Tsushima look really good, but not hyper realistic. Yet, this doesn't really take away too much from the game, as it still looks and feels superb. In terms of audio design, this game hits it just right. From the sound of the waves crashing, to the animals roaming around, to the sound of swords clashing, to stealthing enemies, everything sounds vibrant and powerful. The OST is also very enjoyable and beautifully crafted. Without a doubt, the game looks and sounds phenomenal. You might be wondering, is this a game you played through once and then let it collect physical or virtual dust in your game library? Or is it one that you will revisit often after finishing the story? That is the question, isn't it? Well, fret not. Ghost of Tsushima is an open world game with plenty of collectibles, side quests, and achievements that will require around 60 hours of gameplay to 100% complete and obtain that coveted platinum trophy. Also, if you like a good challenge, the developers did launch an update a week into the game that added a higher difficulty called lethal. So there's that too. However, other than all of this, there isn't much more replayability to the game, or at least there wasn't when I completed the main story and obtained the platinum. As of October 16th, 2020, Sucker Punch added a free update to the game that introduces co-op/multiplayer, new game plus, and plenty of other things. But I'll save that for another video. For now, I will just evaluate the content that was in the game at the time of my completion. If you'd like to learn more about this update to Ghost of Tsushima and my thoughts on it, stay tuned and ring the bell next to the subscribe button to be notified whenever I upload that video. Hehe, sequel baiting. It's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. First off, have you ever heard of the DC hero, The Flash? You know that crazy thing he does when he vibrates really quickly and phases through things? Why the hell can Jin do that? Like, the fuck? Wait, what if Jin is the Flash? Up next, we have an instance where the game forgot to render the item we just picked up. Or did it? I don't know. That red cube looks like the key to the back door to access the source code of the game. Or the game just glitched out on me. One of the many non-mythical skills that Jin can learn is the Rising Dragon Slash. No, not like that. Like this. Best technique ever. You can even do the Rising Dragon dialogue. What a sugoi technique. Now, you know what is not sugoi? This. Some unsavory dude stabbing Jin mid-air and cancelling out the jump strike he was doing. Like, hello? To complain about an issue that happened once and in no way affected me beyond the very instance when it happened, this cutscene dropped major frames like no one's business. Also, what is up with this bird? It must not believe in gravity, cause you know, that's how that works. However, the top unplayability spot goes to this asshole, Kojiro. Kojiro is without a doubt the most annoying thing in the entire game and the most difficult fight. He counters a lot, hits insanely hard, attacks unrelentingly, and executes some deadly combos. On top of that, I went into this fight with no resolve and with armor not designed for combat, but my pride kept me from ending the mission to get more resolve or to change gear. I eventually slaughtered the fool, but this dude can go choke on a big, fat, whooping pee. Anyways, that about does it for us. Let's wrap up and present the Saigo no score. Plot and story are simple and entertaining. For a story grounded in historical facts, with some creative liberties, it does a good job of properly pacing itself, being compelling and thought-provoking. Overall, a solid story accompanied by a meaningful plot. Thus, I give it a 4.5 out of 5. Gameplay is the strongest aspect of this game. The combat, specifically the swordplay, in this game is absolutely insane. Every detail is so well developed and at no point does it feel monotonous or repetitive. Therefore, this is an easy 5 out of 5. Now, given how amazingly well this game captures and conveys the idea of being a samurai/assassin, and the fact that it has the best swordplay I have ever seen in a video game, I will award it an additional point. Thus, I give gameplay a whooping 6 out of 5. Visuals and audio work well with each other. The sounds and music help the scenery feel more alive. Both show a great level of detail and loyalty to the time period. Unfortunately, motion capture and animations aren't revolutionary and the OST isn't too memorable. Thus, I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Replayability at the time of my completion of this game was the weakest aspect. There's plenty to do in the relatively small open world, but after collecting and unlocking everything, there isn't much to do besides completing the game again on a higher difficulty or achieving a different ending. Thus, I give it a 3 out of 5. Unplayability has struck once again. While there are plenty of minor glitches and inconveniences, none go past that. Hey, these things provide me with material to complain about, so no harm, no foul. Thus, I give it a 5 out of 5. And just a reminder on how that score works. The lack of serious unplayability gets the game a high score. Bad unplayability that makes the game literally unplayable gets the game a low score. With that out of the way, my final score for Sucker Punch Productions' Ghost of Tsushima is a 22 out of 25, or 4.4 out of 5, or 88%. With this, Ghost of Tsushima has officially endured my grueling review, so I hereby brand it with my seal of approval and add it to the Hall of Fame of literally unplayable. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel. If you'd like to be notified of when I publish new content, ring the bell next to the subscribe button. You can also check out the channel's social media. We got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and our lovely Discord server. If you'd like to hang out with me and talk more on playability, I do stream on Twitch every Tuesdays and Saturdays. Links to that and everything else down in the description below. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Do you agree or disagree with my review? How do you feel about the fact that I gave Ghost of Tsushima a better score than I did to The Last of Us Part 2? Let's discuss. Also, did you happen to catch my little hint for my next review? If you didn't, you should go back to the beginning of my video to where I speak my pristine Japanese and pay attention to the words I say. Get creative. If you do find my hint, let me know in the comments. As always, stay safe, but remember, no game is ever safe.